What is up, guys? So today I got the boat fixed up and we're gonna be running around Swirl Lake today. I'm gonna be talking about boat positioning today when throwing big swim baits. If you guys are getting followers and they're not just biting, hopefully those followers would just turn into biters without the following part. So we're gonna fish around a couple of areas. We're gonna fish walls, we're gonna fish banks, we're gonna fish docks, and we're gonna fish points. I've got a couple glide baits tied on and a soft bait. And I'm gonna kind of just go over how I fish each and every one of them and those, different spots and when they shine more than the other ones do. So we're gonna run upriver. We're gonna run around, find some spots. So stay tuned, guys. Alright guys, so the first spot I'm going to be talking about is this point right here. It comes pretty far out, all the way out to this buoy over here. So I'm going to kind of go over what I'm looking for. We're only in 13 feet now and it kind of drops off this way, so I'm gonna pick up the swim bait and throw it around a little bit. Alright guys, so I got the point right here. And it comes just straight out from here onto this point. So I'm in the shallow back part of it where it kind of starts. And there's a couple different ways that I'll fish it. I'll fish it on kind of both sides of the point of the hump. So I'll come up on this side and I'll make a cast deep on just one of the sides on the hump. So let my bait sink. I'm pretty much in inches of water right now. And by doing this is that you're drawing those bigger bass that are out deep up into the shallows to pin this bait. May it be a glide bait or a soft bait. Now usually during winter when I fish these points, I'm casting all the way down to 30 plus feet and then bringing it up into the shallows. But now that it's springtime, these fish have been moving up shallow. So I'm not casting too far deep. I'm casting, the farthest I'll go out is 20 feet and bring it up into the shallows. Had a little follower right there already off this point. Now, another way that I like to fish this point is just throwing it across, so kind of like an X now. Same kind of distance out in the 20 plus feet. I'm letting the bait sink down. This is a glide bait, so I'm letting it sink down to about 5 to 7 feet. And a huge thing when fishing glide baits or really swim baits is not to overly do anything. There we hit the point right there. So what that means is just kind of staying off of your trolling motor, kind of just drifting, so you don't spook any fish that may be following your swim bait. Now we'll keep kind of gradually getting deeper and deeper as I go, so I'll work from the shallowest end and my boat will end up being in the deeper end by the end of when I'm done fishing a point. Now I'm throwing a big glide bait on this point rather than like a smaller glide, just because it is a pretty large point and the water is really clear, and I want to pull out those bigger females that are out in the deeper area after they're done spawning. So this bigger trout profile usually will call those fish out from a farther distance and even a deeper distance. Now my bites that come off of a point will sometimes be all the way out there at the end of the point, sometimes all the way up shallow on the point. That's why you got to fish it, kind of different levels, different areas. And again, I'll kind of just fan cast when I'm on top of the point. When fishing this kind of glide bait style, always pay attention to your bait. Make sure that it's swimming correctly, make sure that there's no fish behind it. One of the biggest problems is people kind of get distracted and somehow the bass just know that's when they need to strike your bait or be hot on it, and people will look away and the fish will be wanting to eat it, and by the time they look back, the fish is kind of uninterested, or the bait's at the boat, or your bait was swimming funky on that cast. when it comes to really glide bait fishing, paying attention is such a crucial thing to do. Now I'm throwing this Hinkle trout. It's an 11-inch bait, it's 9 ounces. I'm throwing it on my Moem's 8'3" extra heavy rod, and I'll tell you, it handles it like a champ. It's quite a broomstick of a rod, but that's what you need when throwing these really big swim baits. You don't want a rod that's too light, where you're really hurting yourself and the rod, and where you might snap off just because your rod kind of buckled and couldn't cast the bait. Now the cool thing with Moem's is he's not as popular as like Lowdown Customs, so his waiting list is not that bad. It's not like a year, 2 years for a custom rod. So I'll leave his information down in the description below. You guys can always go check him out. He's also got other stuff on his website. He's got his new spring apparel. I think he's almost ran out of it actually by now. He's got probably a few rods up there, some reels, some baits, some apparel. You guys can go check it out. It's all amazing stuff. Cam, the owner, the maker of the rods, he's a really cool guy, and he just makes absolutely beautiful blanks. So that's really how I like to fish a point. Sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not. So right now, I think we're gonna go fish a flat, probably with one of my soft baits. I'm gonna kind of show you guys how I go through that. All right, so we're sitting up here in 14 feet. Out that way, it kind of drops off, and we're gonna be sitting up here in the shallower water now that we're in 11 feet. I'm gonna be casting into the deeper area, fishing this little flat, so let's see if we can't get one here. All right guys, so flat's just what we're on right now. I'm sitting in 9 feet of water. So what I do with the soft bait, just throw it out into deeper water. I'll let it sink down to the bottom, and I'll kind of start my retrieve so it kind of comes up. And kind of just like fishing the point, you're bringing those bigger fish that sit out in the deeper water, and you're pinning your bait up into the shallows, so it gives those fish a better opportunity at getting that bait, and they feel more comfortable pinning that bait, so they don't have to work so hard to eat it. Now I do this with flats that are what we're in like 9 feet now, and I'm throwing out into like 20. I'll do it in flats that where I'm sitting in 20 and I'm throwing out into 40. This time of year, these spawners, they like to move up on this flat. They like just spawn, and those big females will move off and they'll sit up on that edge, and that's the whole concept of fishing that edge. I can fish, you know, this flat with like a glide bait, and I could, you know, throw around and I could probably catch a bunch of males, and then once I know I'm on the bottom, I'll kind of start my retrieve. I'm feeling some grass already down there. Yeah, I don't want to be fishing for those little males that are up here spawning. I'd rather go for those bigger females. Those fish could be up to, you know, 10 pounds out there. Now with this kind of setup, I've got a Lowdown Customs 8-foot extra heavy rod. I absolutely love it. It's a really lightweight rod. It's got such a light tip on it that when I'm fishing these baits down there on the bottom and I've got a lot of line out, it's a very sensitive rod, and I can feel those subtle bites. But a lot of the times lately, they've just been smacking the crap out of the bait. And this rod has, even with that tip, has great backbone, so you can just hit them hard. And I've just got a Shimano Cardip on here to 300 size reel. It's a starter kind of reel, but I'll tell you what, this is an absolutely amazing reel for the price. And you can find these even cheaper than retail, honestly, brand new. And you can't go wrong with them. If you tune them, you lube them up and whatnot, these things can last you a very long time. Mine is still smooth, and I put in some really nice fish through it already. I'm throwing 25-pound mono on here. This is P-line. I got the 25 on here just because I sometimes will switch over to like a 250 on this rod, and I think 25-pound mono is pretty good for a 250. But usually with the soft baits, I'll switch around from fluorocarbon to mono. but with the water being a little bit stingier, I can get away with using heavier mono. And all I do is let it hit the bottom. I'm on the bottom right now. I'm just slow crawling it up this hill. I'm bumping into all the rocks down there. Sometimes I'll give it, a quick speed up, give it a quick pop. But a lot of the times my bites are coming when I'm hitting that structure down there. So I just got done fishing that entire flat. No bites or anything like that. I kind of switched off from casting deep to casting shallow. Nothing to show for it, so we're gonna go fish a couple more spots. So when I like to fish these walls here, I like to get up close and personal with them. You guys can see that I'm really tight against this wall, and I'm just getting my bait pinning itself up against the wall. And now what that does is, these fish, they like to suspend sometimes on these walls. And when you pin your bait up against that wall, it gives them an easier target to actually eat the bait. And so you'll see a lot of dudes that fish here, if they ever do fish a wall, they fish it really tight, almost bumping their boat into the wall and keeping that bait no more than 2 or 3 feet away from that wall. That's very important. A lot of the times, if you have your bait too far off the wall, the fish won't bite it, they'll just follow it. But if you get it up close into that wall, even sometimes hitting that wall, those fish will bite it more often than not. Alright guys, so when it comes to fishing banks, the way that I like to fish them is just parallel. So I'll throw out just like that, pretty much parallel with this toolie line here, and I'll let the bait sink down. I fish both my soft baits and my glide baits the same way, and I just start my retrieve. It's pretty simple. That's kind of how I just bank beat. I go down banks like that, but the kind of banks that I go down and fish like that are banks that I've had success doing that kind of stuff, and that I know that fish tend to like that certain bank, because there's certain spots on this lake that will always hold fish, and sometimes other spots will kind of have them seasonal. But I'll fish banks that I know that there's always fish there, kind of like that, so I can cover a lot of water. I usually will pick a faster bait, which is usually like a glide bait. I'm throwing the HPH right now. I've got it on a Okuma Guide Select. This is the 711 heavy, so it's got a pretty light tip, but the backbone's really good for these treble hook baits. And then I've just got a Bass Pros Extreme on here. It's a 200 size reel. It holds a lot of 25, surprisingly, and it's really, really smooth, and it handles this HPH perfectly. So this is going to be like the last spot that I kind of go over with boat positioning, and it's of course docks. So I'm going to be throwing around the swim bait. I'm going to be giving you guys some tips and just showing you guys how I position my boat when fishing these docks. Alright guys, so when I'm fishing a dock or a marina like this, where you got 2 slips and you got 2 docks coming out, I will usually like to, I will be either throwing like a glide bait or a soft bait. Usually I will be throwing like a soft bait and kind of tighter areas where I know if I throw like a glide bait, it might break if I hit the dock or a boat or something like that. So then open these slips like here. I throw usually my bait in the back corner, and I like to keep my rod tip all the way to the side so my bait stays right up against the right side of the dock. And those fish like to position themselves underneath those docks, so when you put your bait under there with them, then that's just a bonus. I like to do it on both sides. Usually if I have 2 people in the boat, I'll have one hit the first one that I come up to, and then the second person will hit the second one that I come up to. But the most important thing to remember when fishing this kind of area is you have to be accurate with both hands. You have to be able to cast left-handed. You also got to be able to cast right-handed. And now, I like to fish the shady sides on docks that have shade on them. Now, I'm not saying that you won't get bit on the sunny side, but most of my successes come off of, shady side docks. Now, last time we were out here, Phoenix had about 7 or 8 pound fish come up on his bait. Came out of just one of these sides right here in the sun. It was very, very unexpected. We were able to get that fish to bite. We just couldn't hook up with the fish. So always be wary of that. Always be, looking at these kind of posts as points, because sometimes fish will just sit right here on this corner, just waiting for anything to go by and ambush it. Now, when it comes to my boat positioning when fishing these marinas, it's pretty much kind of basic. I usually go parallel down, and I'll be standing like this, and I will usually just make casts like that. So the boat usually will just stay in front, kind of in the motion that you're going down, and it makes fishing these a lot easier, especially when you have 2 people. You can kind of hit them pretty quickly. Well, we're gonna end off today. Had some pretty good opportunities actually on some of the places that we kind of went over in this video today. Kind of the last second, I had a nice little wolf pack of fish come off of some of the docks at the marina. Just couldn't get them to commit to the bait, but other than that, just another day of swim bait fishing. Some days you can just come out here and whack them, and other days you kind of just grind. And today was just one of those grinders, but other than that, that's just swim bait fishing, so I'm kind of used to it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and as always,